backbone. And as our dear Minister Farrakhan has also said on several occasions, they lack testicular fortitude.
That's right.
And this is something that this takes that fortitude in order to produce. You can't do this unless it's sincere. You can't reproduce this. You can't allow yourself to be harmed and go and inhale tear gas unless you really believe what you're doing. Right. And today in this society, dealing in the manner with the information, dealing with Twitter and MySpace and Facebook, we need to get more committed people into the mission of saving our young people and our older people. We need to get everybody's hands on the plow so that we can continue to move our people to a point that they are self-sufficient. Right. See, we're still looking for that great Messiah to come from the other side of the track to first of all give us credence, and then validate us, and then save us. And what happens when we begin to stand up and validate ourselves, within our validation is salvation.
That's right.
So now we have to begin to really work hard to validate ourselves to each other and for ourselves, and rather than looking for somebody outside of us. So I think we need to make this an annual journey, that we bring a group of young people, 100, 200, 300. I really believe it needs to be an expansion of the campus of Tuskegee, so that when I was at Fisk University, we had an exhibit like this for W.E.B. Du Bois, because it was the centennial of his graduation. And we learned about W.E.B. Du Bois. We learned about his struggle. We learned about him because what they were attempting to do is reproduce W.E.B. Du Bois' spirit in some of these students. Right. And what happened, it rubbed off. A lot of those brothers and sisters in my class, in my freshman class, are judges who are working on behalf of their people, attorneys, doctors who are working on behalf of their people, not just come to the campus and have a good time and party and be a Q and jump around and hop around and be a Delta and act a fool and be a tool and a fool for our open enemy. It is time now that we become responsible in our learning, responsible in our knowledge gathering, and begin to disseminate it just as we receive it.
Yes, I'd just like to say the life of Amelia Boynton Robinson really shows the effects of generational family, because her unusual acts of courage didn't come from nowhere, but was prepared by her parents and by her grandparents. They were no ordinary people. Her mother had her out when she was 10 years old, I believe, organizing for women's right to vote. So seeds were planted in her character. And that's no accident that she grew up to be the person that she was, because her family had been working on this before she was born for generations. And then you could see the extension of that into her generations in terms of her son Bruce Boynton, who really did the first freedom ride all by himself and is responsible for some of the changes in legislation in terms of interstate travel. So that's an important lesson I think everyone needs to see, is that effect of generations on the family.
Osama Muhammad said, out of all of our subjects, history is best qualified to reward its researcher. And one thing that I would like to see and to know is what goes into the thought of a person who's willing to give their life to see someone else be free. Like Dr. King said, I may not get there with you, but we as a people gonna get there to the promised land. I once heard a man say, freedom fighters are like the space shuttle. He said, you know how you see the space shuttle, they had the two big fuel rockets on the side. But when it gets to a certain point, when it breaks out of the Earth's atmosphere, the fuel rockets don't make it into space. But it propels the space shuttle out into space, so, out of the Earth's gravitational pull. And a minister once asked me one time, he said, would you really be in the struggle if you knew you were just a fuel rocket? That you wouldn't see the hereafter, you wouldn't see the promised land? Because you be like Paul and Jesus say, by my stripes you will be healed, and really sacrifice your life. So when I look at Mrs. Robinson's life, it's a life of sacrifice. When Jesus said, you got to be long-suffering, patient, and tolerant, you got to forgive. I see a picture of her knocked unconscious for me, for us. and then and get up and still continue on the fight. See, being crucified, see, it's easy to just, I ain't saying it's easy, but you can say, okay, I'll die for you. I'll push you out the front of from a bus, or I'll take a bullet for you. But you may feel that pain for a moment or two. But can you sacrifice for 70 years, being ridiculed and attacked and spit on and mistreated, and still every day get up and face that crucifixion day after day? That's real sacrifice. So man, we need to really put her out front and put her on the pedestal and force the children. If history is best qualified to reward its researchers, she's duplicatable. We can duplicate that once we find out her thinking, and we can get up into her mind. Minister Farrakhan says that all the time. He said, you never really know what a person's going to. You have to study them and get up into their mind, and then you can operate and function in the same manner that they operated and functioned in. So I'm just thankful to be here, and I'm going to do anything I can to make this a reality, because it's just a life of sacrifice. I can't say what was in the people to say, hey, I'm going to go out there and help. I know the police is beating folks up, but they just came out in support. What was the thought of the people in the civil rights movement to just say, hey, I'm going out and face these dogs, and just come in droves? Just where did the thought originate? It's like God moving. When the scriptures say the Spirit of God moved through the people, I'm looking at that.
Well, it's probably the same thought that allows a brother to sit on a corner with a paper in 100-degree weather with a suit on.
That's right, brother.
You know, what is the thought?
Right.
What's in my hand in this paper is so valuable that I will sacrifice my personal time.
That's right.
My personal space, my personal, you know, the point of being rejected, the point of being ridiculed. I sacrifice all of that if one person, one person